Hey! Alright. Hey, hi, howdy, everybody. It is Sunday, and I am dying. No, it is Sunday. That means we're doing card combatants again. There's not really I don't really have a face that properly communicates just how unhappy I am that this name is sticking. Okay, let me take a big sippy here, chat. Okay, cool. Actually, whoa, there we go. Okay, huh? Huh? There we go. Ding. That should be fine. That should be fine for some background noise. Alright, so how are we doing? How are we doing, chat? How's everything going today? I do wanna real quick, just some housekeeping. Last stream we discovered that the sound alerts were maybe slightly too loud. So I have gone ahead and reduced the volume of all of those. If you're still not sure where the sound alerts are, they should be. There should be a button on the right side of the actual stream screen thing. It should be just above my stupid talking head. If you want to press those buttons, play with them. They cost you absolutely nothing. They cost me absolutely nothing. They cost nobody absolutely anything. So just spam those. Go ahead and spam them. Just make some noise with them if you want, chat. It's fine. That's what they're there for. Other than that, let's talk about role playing game. So, role playing game. Alright, let me just sum up where we're at, what we've done. So, what we've done so far is we've basically gone ahead and we've put out an outline of what we want the system to do. What is, like, the specific thing that we want to accomplish with this system that no other system we know of does. So we know what our end goal is, and we've got a groundwork, right? So we've got, like, a basic idea of this is what a person looks like in this system. So we have... I'm actually going to make another... Just make a round up here real quick. So we've got goal. You give a hand system that lets players duel in the context of a tabletop role-playing game. Wow. Or it's fate, but the trading cards. System. Cool system. Do. Physical, social, academic awareness. Yes. Okay. Physical. Social. Awareness. Academic. I mean, these are subject to change. Like, it's not... None of this is set in stone. So, I was watching a video about the development of Deus Ex, like the original, and comparing it to how Deus Ex Human Revolution was like planned and developed. And one of the interesting things that I learned is that when they developed Human Revolution, what the studio did, and there's a whole complicated story behind like that development studio and all sorts of stuff that happens because like the studio that was developing Human Revolution, like their parent company ceased to exist like halfway through development. They just didn't. And then they were picked up by, I'm trying to think it was Squeenix, right? I think it's Square Enix picked them up. And so that's why like you can find Square Enix Easter eggs in Human Revolution. But one of the things that it's an interesting story in its own right because a lot of weird shit happened. Like they ended up being the Montreal branch of a company that no longer existed because it was eaten. I think it was Eidos, but they were eaten by a company that then changed its name to Eidos, which it's fascinating. It's wild. I might do a stream on it at some point because it's just such a fucking rabbit hole. But anyway, the pertinent bit for today, the thing that I learned. So what they did when they were developing Human Revolution was they had this big fucking board, right? Like this huge fucking, basically a wall covered in paper, and on each of these pieces of paper was a idea or a feature that they wanted to implement, right? And they came up with this right at the start of development and went, right, okay, this is the plan, this is the goalpost. This is everything that we are going to make and put in the game. Which is, it sounds like, if you don't really know much about it, it sounds like a good idea if you don't know much about like actually developing something, because you're just like, oh, well, you've already got everything you need, you've already got all the goalposts laid out before you even start, right? So like, that's everything that you want. You already know what you're going to be doing, so you already know all the beats you need to hit. Except when it comes down to actually putting it into practice, that's a really bad way of doing things because it doesn't give you any flexibility. And what you'll find, and what we will almost certainly find going forward into this project, is that we are going to have ideas that we want to put in, right? We'll have ideas that we want to put in that mean we have to change something else, or something that we put in at one point we're going to later on find doesn't work, and we're going to have to, change that around or take it out entirely. Like this has been the case on every single other project I've worked on, whether that is making role-playing games, whether that's making I've dabbled a little bit with actual video games. I've not completed anything. Nothing that I've started is even like not even like 5% done. Right? None of that's ever seen the light of day. I'm just gonna put the kibosh on that right now. I'm not making video games. That's not gonna happen. But like, I do other writing as well. That's what I did at university. It's it's happened with the streaming, right? Like everything that you work on in terms of a project will have stuff that changes. It's just the nature of the beast. It's something that happened with the original Deus Ex as well, and it's a big point that they made. The developers they did a talk about it a couple of years back, right? And they were saying like, yeah, we had these ideas about all this stuff that we wanted to put in, and like half of it just didn't make it because we couldn't make it work, or because it just no longer fit the project. And like, Deus Ex is considered to be by a lot of people like one of the best, at least best games in terms of its genre, if not one of the most influential games of its era. Like, it's kind of this important cultural touchstone for a lot of people. You know, some people regard it as a classic. So, you know. So, yeah, like, I think the core of this, right, what we want to accomplish with it, I don't think that's going to change. I think this is definitely something that we can make happen. This is something that we can make work. The parts that might change are stuff like this, right? Like the specifics of what kind of stats we're using, or how the card game we implement itself might work. That's the kind of stuff that we'll probably end up chopping and changing, so... It's not going to be a super complicated system. So one of the things that I want to avoid, I want to avoid comparing this to D&D. Now, I know that's a really good thing to have in terms of visibility, right? Like, you want people to be... If people are comparing your game to D&D, usually that's a good thing. We may have our gripes with wizards and so on, but at the end of the day, D&D is sort of like the Google of tabletop role-playing games. Like, when someone talks about, oh, do you want to play D&D, they don't always mean, do you want to play Dungeons and Dragons, but they always mean, oh, do you want to play a tabletop role-playing game? Right? Well, apart from, like, the 3 people that still play Neverwinter Nights, Resto and Pesto, we mourn you every day. God. I actually have no idea how popular Neverwinter Nights is. Anyway, but I want to avoid that. The reason why I want to avoid that is because D&D does a lot of things as a system that I don't really like, and a lot of things that I don't think are accurate for what we're trying to accomplish. So D&D, let me just break D&D down for a second. So it's a D20 system. Now D20 systems are fine. There's nothing wrong with them. The only issue is people come in with presuppositions about how it works. For example, you will almost certainly have heard, oh, I rolled a 20, that means I succeed. Not necessarily true. Even by the rules of D&D, every edition that I'm aware of, and bear in mind, I've not played every edition, and I do not have an encyclopedic knowledge of the rules, but the systems that I'm aware of, when you roll a skill check, which is, again, for most systems, any roll that isn't an attack against another creature, rolling a 20 does not guarantee success. You still have to beat whatever the target number is. It can be physically impossible for you to pass a skill check. The rules can change based on who's running the game. Like, some people are just like, yeah, if you roll a 20 in my game, that means you succeed. And it's like, well, okay, whatever. Like, that's... How have you run it, man? Like, I can't account for house rules. But, again, that is a lot of people believe that is a core part of the rules, not just for D&D, but for any system that uses 20-sided dice. We could invent a system that uses a 20-sided dice, but then doesn't. It could be a D20 roll-under system, right? So you've got stats that are, for example, anywhere from 15 to 5, and to succeed a skill check, you have to roll lower than your stat, right? This is how most percentile systems work. But again, you'd have people coming in, and because it's a D20 and they recognize that from D&D, they're going to have specific assumptions about how the system works that you're basically going to have to beat out of them. Or at least patiently explain, hey, that's not how this game works. The other thing that D&D does that I really don't like is it has stat-dependent stats. So, for example, one thing that a couple of stats that your character will have in D&D, you'll have your level, you'll have your dexterity. You might have weapon bonuses, or armor bonuses, or so on and so on and so on. Something else you'll have is AC, and that's your armor class, right? And that is just how difficult it is to hit you. Oh, okay. How do we figure out armor class? Well, that's simple. What it is it's your dexterity modifier, which is if you have a dexterity of 20, you don't just add that to whatever you roll when you roll dexterity. You need to add the modifier, which is a smaller number that is based on the bigger number. So you take your dex mod, which is derived from your dexterity, plus your level, or sometimes it is level plus half, or half level. Sometimes it is proficiency, which is, again, not directly your level, it is a stat derived from your level. Plus your armor. If applicable. Some sets of armor do not let you use your dex mod. And eventually, you get to your AC. Now I hate this. This is one of the simpler calculations in D&D, and it is more simple than this makes it look, because you'll figure out your dex at character creation, and then you'll be told what your dex mod is. If you don't already know, it will only be one of these three things here. It's not level times half level times proficiency. Right? It is ultimately just three things added together. Maybe even just two things added together if you don't have armor, or if your armor doesn't let you use your dex mod. The problem that I have with it, majorly, is that it's not straightforward. This has to be calculated. And I'm not the biggest fan of that. D&D is weird, right? Like, I've seen a meme sum it up, where someone, like, comes up to you and goes, "Hey, are you a fan of mathematics?" Not particularly. How about improvisational acting? Not the biggest fan. What if I combined them and added dungeons? Ah, now I am interested. Like, it's weird. But I'm very much not a fan of having to sit down and do the mathematics. Stat-dependent stats are probably the worst of it. For me, I can about deal with a stat that's derived from another. Oh, I've got a dex of 20, which means I have a dex modifier of 5. Okay, I get it. I don't like it, but I get it. And I do understand where this comes from. I just don't particularly like it. I feel like AC should be based on, I don't know, one of these, maybe two. Ideally, AC wouldn't actually be based on anything. In the system that we're building, that's not how it works at all. Fortunately, this is something that it's based on a system that I've made before, so I already have a good idea of how this works. But the way that this system's working is, basically during combat, both players will, the person attacking and the person being attacked, both roll a stat, and then the defender takes a difference in damage, assuming they roll lower. If they roll higher, then they don't take any damage because they've successfully defended. Yeah, surprise. Surprise, the system works. But yeah, we kind of want to avoid the D&D comparisons because we're not playing anything like D&D. This is like D&D in so much as it's a tabletop role-playing game, and that is it. We are trying to step away from a lot of the stuff that D&D does, because I think a lot of the stuff that D&D does is ultimately detrimental to the kind of players that we're trying to get into this game. I'm sure I've said it in a previous stream, but if I wanted to really focus on combat and stuff, like, there are better games. There are other games that are just much better suited. I'd go and play 40k. And this is very much an admission as well, that like we are not trying to cater to every... We're not trying to cater to every single role player that could exist. We're not trying to please everyone. Because if you try and please everyone, then you're going to end up pleasing no one. I'd rather make a game that I want to play, and find other people who enjoy it and want to play games like it. I think that's the best way of going forwards as a game dev. Rather than just making a, like, even a broadly popular system, right? I still feel like that's weaker than just making a system that is niche, maybe not very popular at all, but at least I can understand the player base better because they're more like me. Because the people playing this game, if I've made a game that I like, right, the kind of game that I would like to play, then there's a good chance that the people playing it are going to be like-minded. That's what I'm trying to get to. So all this kind of stuff about like D20s and stat-dependent stats, we want to stay away from that as much as possible. You should be able to glance at the character sheet, and even if you don't know how the game is played, you have it, like, off the bat, you're going to know how to roll your stats and what good is going to look like compared to bad. There shouldn't be anything that you're looking at and it's like, oh, I need to look in this page of the book to figure this out. So, 1d4, 1d6, 1d8, 1d10, 1d4, 1 for each stat, static, PM3, this is this. Right. So all this means is that we put one of each size of dice into each of these attributes up here. So one of them will have a d4, one of them will have a d6, one of them will have a d12, so on and so on, yada yada yada. This just means that on a static skill check, so any skill check where the character is not actively being opposed by another person or another creature or what have you, they need to roll a 3 or higher to pass. Which is lovely easy for some dice, and a coin flip for others. An opposed roll is an opposed roll, so that's basically if they're trying to do something against someone else, trying to beat someone in a foot race, trying to outperform another bard in the tavern. Yeah, I was talking about D&D. We're just gonna slip into D&D metaphors. Fuck me. It begins. But yeah, if you're doing something against another person, both of you roll. Whoever rolls higher is the winner. Like, these are very simple kind of things. Like, again, this shouldn't be difficult to understand. Something that we want to avoid is, like, the 400-page tome as well. Granted, a lot of 400-page tomes, like, when you look at, like, the really big rulebooks for tabletop role-playing games, a lot of that is setting. But I think there's a misconception about role-playing games that they have to be overly complicated, and there are perfectly good systems out there that are actually quite simple. I mean, but there are a ton of diceless systems that are very easy to understand. The one that comes to mind immediately is Ricus, right? You can run Fate diceless as well if you want to. I ran a session of a game of the Chronicles of Amber, which is a very interesting system, a very good system if you want to check it out at some point if you're into diceless systems. Yeah, it is more complicated. It is, again, one of the 400-page tomes, but a lot of that, as I say, was actually stuff that's ancillary to running the actual game itself. There's interesting stuff, man. There's interesting stuff out there, you just need to look for it. This so far is... But, like, the point is, even that interesting stuff, when you know how to look at it properly, you'll find out that it's actually quite straightforward. Or at least in a lot of places it's straightforward. Ultimately, that's what we want to accomplish here as well. This needs to be straightforward. Like, if the players don't understand it at a glance, then something's probably gone wrong. Okay, but that's probably the core of it. So we need to have a look at where we go from here. So we want to do something about hit points. So I feel like we probably won't be looking at classes or anything like that. It doesn't seem to me that we need anything like that. Any important differences mechanically between characters are going to come down to two things. How they put their stats in the calls, and what kind of deck they build. This isn't going to be a rules-heavy system by any stretch of the imagination, so we don't need to look at stuff like classes, we don't need to look at like races or anything, because it's not going to make a significant difference, like, mechanically. And I know this can be rocky ground as well, like, just talking about races and stuff in terms of role-playing games. Understand that in this context, we are strictly speaking about mechanical differences. That is, how these things would affect stats, dice rolls, and so on. The way that I see it, it shouldn't make a difference. Because everyone's going to be a human. Well, there's an argument that some people could be like AI and stuff. Like yeah, there's like the brain stuff, but even back in like DM, there was the fucking virtual world stuff, right? And it's like, is Noah a person, or is he... No. Yu-Gi-Oh's wacky. But yeah, I don't think we need to be worrying about anything like that. Um, I think it's unnecessary complication. There is something to be said for people having customization options. However, I don't think this is the right way to go about it. The other question you would ask is, what kind of... what kind of classes would you have, right? I mean, you're either a duelist or you're not. It could be interesting to do something with different eras, but also I feel like anyone playing... So let's say we broke it down as like 5 different eras or 5 different types of summoning, right? Actually, that could be interesting. That could work. Yeah, if you had to pick like a special summoning mechanic that you used, maybe that could be interesting. Although that would shut down some decks just entirely, like that would completely shut off their end boards. And something else we need to think about is floodgates. Yeah, it would single-handedly make dimensional barrier just completely fucking busted. Just in a single fucking move. But no, I mean, talking about like different classes and stuff, I don't think it's something that we're going to delve into. Because like you're going to get to pick all of the cards in your deck anyway, right? I feel like that's, mechanically speaking, that's probably enough customization. Um, there's a question of, oh, what if someone doesn't want to play a duelist? That's an awkward question because I don't really have an answer for it. Admittedly, I also don't think it's going to matter too much. Like, why are you playing a Yu-Gi-Oh game if you don't want to play Yu-Gi-Oh? I don't know. It's not something I'm going to actively consider right now, but it is something that I do want to address further down the line, because I think that is actually a valid question. I think there is a universe where you can play this game without being a duelist. I just don't know what the actual answer to that is right now. Anyway, that's... So hit points, it's probably going to be... I'm gonna put it at 20. HP 0. Yes. And then damage. So we've got attacking, defending. Each rolls 1 dice. Attack. Defender takes damage. Do a current attack. if defender is higher and damage is for that attack. Okay, the attack misses. Because that can be important, the difference between an attack hitting but not doing any damage and an attack missing. Because if you've got an effect that activates on hit, that will still activate even if it does no damage. So we just have to specify here that the attack does in fact miss and you don't get those things. So, yeah, basically all this says is that when a character attacks something, both of you roll a dice for each attack, because the character may be able to make more than one attack in a round. And the defender takes damage equal to the difference, unless the defender rolls higher, in which case they don't take any damage and the attack misses. Again, very simple, very straightforward. We don't need to do anything else here. Again, there's arguments you can make for, oh, well, what about maneuvers? What about, like, cold shots and stuff like that? We're really not talking about that kind of system. Again, it needs to be simple. At the very least, at this stage, it needs to be as simple as possible. It needs to be very... I can pick it up at a glance and understand it. Kind of difficulty. So this is what we stand at now. This should cover just about everything that we need to do short of the specialist stuff. So, we could run an escape scene through this. We could run a combat scene through this. We can do just about everything we want to do. The only thing that we can't do right now is the actual card game. This is going to require some labbing. This is going to need some work. Yeah, so there's two big questions that we need to... Yeah, there's two big questions that we need to answer here. So question one is card games. How do they work? Much like magnets. Don't really know. Shout out to the Insane Clown Posse. Making a banger of a song. The other question we need to answer is, what is everyone else doing at this point? Now this question may not actually matter. So, because... Well, let's break down what we actually want to do with the card game. So, what we're not doing... We aren't. We're not running sets. Not doing full-scale duels, right? We're not sitting down with like a 40-card deck or a 60-card pile, 8k life points and going, okay, let's go. Like, here's the thing about modern Yu-Gi-Oh, okay? It plays very differently to Duel Monsters kind of era Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Like, the playground Yu-Gi-Oh most of us would have played back in Back in 2002, where the best card in your deck was fucking Vanilla Dark Magician by virtue of having 2500 attack, right? Even though Summon Skull was strictly better because it required one fewer tributes. Yeah, Summon Skull still tournament play. You know what didn't? Fucking Dark Magician. You know, an era where Blue Eyes White Dragon was the best monster, arguably, because it had the biggest number in its attack stat, and that's all that really mattered. Until it was the only monster on your side of the field, and your opponent played Fissure, and then it's like, ah, well. Yeah, yeah. So the difference, really... The difference really is in, like, interactivity. Barring certain DM staples, Imperial Order, you know, blow out cards like fucking Painful Choice or what have you, in before someone says Cyberjar. Very funny card, Cyberjar. Anyway, the difference is, back in Duel Monsters, you would have these long games because you had a lot of turns. Like, a turn would be something like set 2 pass, right? Like, I summon a monster, I play one card face down, and it's something done like Trap Hole or Mirror Force. And, like, that's your entire turn. A big turn would be, I tribute summon my big guy, and I attack into your maybe not as big guy. Most of the powerful cards were stuff like spells and traps. Again, stuff like Imperial Order, stuff like Pot of Greed. Regeki was rightfully banned for a very long time because destroy all monsters your opponent controls on a spell card was just way too much for a very long time. And it's only recently been unbanned. I'm not sure if it's at... I'm not sure what it's at in the TCG, actually. Oh, also, a new ban list for the TCG went live yesterday, which is incredibly funny because there's currently 2 YCSs on. It's very funny. Alright, we'll see FNL. Let's... We're looking for... I think I'm just misspelling it. I don't think it's on here, though. It would be URS. Yeah, it would be right here. So yeah, Regeki is now at 3. Completely unbanned. I believe. Let me just memory, reasoning. Yeah, it would be here if it was limited. Is it semi? It is not semi. Yeah, so completely unbanned, completely fine. Oh, that's concerning. Okay, do I need to do a ban list reaction? I'll do a ban list reaction. I don't particularly I don't particularly play top level TCG, but I'll do a ban list reaction for you all. Cyber Sign Limited. Whoa! God no. Okay, so Stein, yeah, Stein was in fact a card that existed. So Cyber Stein has been around since the earliest days of Yu-Gi-Oh. It was one of the first big fucking blowout monsters. What it does is you pay 5,000 life points, which is, yes, most of your life points, and you can special summon a fusion monster from the extra deck. It used to be from the fusion deck, because that used to be all that we had in there, but then they made Synchros, and now it's the extra deck, and we have a ton of things. But Cyber Sign only pulls out fusion monsters. The problem is, there are some very powerful monsters that are fusion monsters that you can cheat out with Cyber Sign. On combo used to be, you'd play Stein, you'd pay 5,000, you'd pull out Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, and you equip that with Megamorph. Except, no, you didn't, because Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon wasn't released in the TCG, that is, the Western version of the card game, i.e., the version of the card game that doesn't exist in Japan, until 2009. It wasn't a good combo in 2009. However, this is something that the video games would do because they would program, stuff like Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon into the fucking video games. But the AI would go, I will play Cyberside. I will summon Blue Eyes Ultimate. I'll equip it with Megamorph. Because my life points are lower than yours, Megamorph doubles my monster's attack. I will now attack you for 9,000 points of damage and win the game. So, that was what you used to do with it. These days, you are playing Stein in Sprite because it's a level 2. Sprite likes level 2s. I think you searched it off of Gallant Granite? Or basically, Dex had a way to consistently get to this card, which you would then special summon. You'd then use its effect to bring out a card called Naturia Exterior, which is usually pretty fucking hard to summon because you've got to fusion summon it with 2 synchro monsters. Stein can just cheat it out. And Naturia Exterior has the effect where you can banish a card from your graveyard, then mill one from the top of your deck, in order to negate a spell or trap activation. Exterior is not once per turn. There is no limit on how many times Exterior can do this shit. So basically, by getting Exterior on the field, as long as you have at least one card in your graveyard, you can infinitely negate their spells and traps, shutting them out of 2/3 of the game. Now, you'd argue that Exterior should be the one banned here. I actually support the Stein ban. I don't think it's a bad game to have. I don't think it's a bad thing to have powerful cards in the game. The problem is when they are too easy to access by certain means, such as Stein, or when Virtual World had access to BFD. Yeah, it's not surprising that Stein has been banned again. I'm a little sad to see it go, because again, it's one of those monsters that's like, oh wow, this is kind of an iconic monster in certain regards, but it's iconic for the wrong fucking reasons. Rest in kill Cyberstein, you'll be vaguely missed. What else is new? Scarecrow. So Super Heavy Samurai recently got new support. Theoretically, it's meant to be one of the meta deck contenders at this point, which is surprising for people who played the OG Super Heavy Samurai, but hey, there you go. I am not particularly well informed about this kind of stuff, so as I understand, Samurai can probably still lab out lines that do not go through Scarecrow, so this doesn't matter too much, but it's not the best. They'd rather not see it hit. It's kind of wild because we've had maybe 2 weeks with the new Super Heavy Samurai stuff. So the fact that it's already being hit on the ban list is interesting. Diablo System Mind Hacker. I do not know what this guy does. All I'm really interested in is two level 7s? Oh, okay, this is a cash tier hit then, I guess. Can I find a readable version of this card? There we go. Attach one material, look at your opponent's extra, banish one monster from it face down. Enter the vast phase of this card, destroy a monster by battle. You can target one card in your opponent's graveyard, banish it face down. I'm fairly sure this is all stuff that Cash Tira cares about. But your opponent owns and possesses, so a card that was originally your opponent's and is still in their control, is banished face down while you control this card. You can banish cards from the top of your opponent's deck, face down, equal to their face down banish cards. Huh. Yeah, so this is absolutely a Kashtira hit. I'm not sure how important a Kashtira hit it is, given that it costs all of £1. I'm inclined to say it's a nice option to have, but probably not key to the strategy. A point of the Red Lotus. Pay 2,000, reveal your entire hand, look at your opponent's hand, banish one card from it. To your opponent's next end phase. Yeah, so this guy reads like he's a lot worse than he actually is. He basically reads, yeah, your opponent's playing down one card, and you get to pick which card it is. This is the better half of the Delinquent Duo. If you're going first, you can pop it at the top of your opponent's turn. You can pop it just after they draw. Like, you're not using it to snipe out, like, hand traps and stuff. What you are using it to do is to take out starters. Essentially, this is a card that will, in the right circumstances, turn the game into a non-game, and we do not like to see that. Good, it can get fucked. Branded Expulsion is an interesting hit because Branded really wasn't doing much in this meta. Branded was good a couple of months ago. This is a hit that made sense maybe a month ago? As it stands, wow, they've hit, what, like the 4th? 5th best deck? Yeah, this is very much a who cares hit. Blaster, Dragon Ruler of Infernos. My homies from Dragon Ruler spellbook format are probably screaming because, you know, what do you mean we're taking Dragon Rulers off the ban list? Realistically, Dragon Link has existed since 2019. We've had Tempest off the list for ages. It's not changed anything. Tempest is a nice option to have, but by no means a key inclusion. Blaster's very much in the same boat. Like, it's nice, but having one is fine. The decks, it doesn't change any of the maths in any of the decks that would use it. Like, I might pick one up to put in my own Dragon Link deck because I like Blaster. I just think it's a cool card. It is by no means a rush out and buy it quick because it's gonna be gone. Like, nah. Dragon Rules were very good for their formats. We're not in said format anymore. Same with Spellworks. What else have we got? Mathmech Circular Limited. It's sort of like the Scarecrow hit, but not. Circular is easily the best card the Mathmech has access to. At least in terms of extending the gameplay and being a starter and all that stuff. It's definitely the best engine card they have access to. They can still find it. It's not the end of the world, but having that hit from 3 to 1 is not good. That is significant. And again, it's another weird hit because, like Branded Expulsion, this is what, the 4th? Mathmech is maybe like the 4th best deck right now. It's very bizarre. Slight Frame Gear Gamma. Okay, this is a very interesting hit. Gamma is a hand trap. Hold on. Because I know what Gamma does off the top of my head, but I can't remember what it does exactly. Well, that looks vaguely readable. No, you're not going to give us a zoom? Okay, well. Yeesh. Oh, it's because we're looking at the collector's rare, that's why. Okay. Okay, so this up here does not matter. Basically, when opponent activates a monster effect, you can special summon both this card and one driver. Driver is a level 6 vanilla. If you hand, deck, or graveyard, if you do, negate that activation. If you do, shrine that monster. Basically, what this guy does is he goes, as long as you don't have any monsters, this guy will go, oh, you've activated a monster effect. No, you don't. And he puts himself and driver on the field, which are a 2 monsters. So you've got a bit of a wall. And then at the end of the turn, he goes, okay, right, peace. And they both dip. So this has always been a good hand trap, but it's never been like super oppressive, and I think that's probably largely because of this line here. If you've already established a board, you know, if you've already got some monsters on your side of the field, this guy's completely offline. Much like Lightning Storm, which is another card that requires you to have no cards face up to activate. Evenly Matched as well sort of falls into the same category in that it is another card that cares if you've got a board established. Yeah, it's a catch-all for any monster negates, which is obviously very powerful. But the fact that you have to... Does it just negate, or does it negate and destroy? It negates and destroys, so yeah. It's a very powerful negate. The fact that it can catch any monster, and it destroys it as well, is pretty... Yeah, no, like, it's... In terms of viability and in terms of influence, yes. Very important. However, controlling no monsters is the key point. I'm surprised to see it on here. I wouldn't have thought that this is a monster that needs to be limited. Especially given that it also requires you to run a driver, which is very much not a card that you want to draw. It is a level 6 vanilla. It does nothing on its own, it will just clog up your hand. The fact that you can only have one driver now means that unless you have a way of searching it, it's a 50-50 on if you're going to draw driver. Because you want to be specialing the other guy from the deck, right? Or from the graveyard. You don't want it taking up a space in your hand. I don't really understand this hit. I don't know if there's a... Maybe it's a sort of hit to Labyrinth. Labyrinth is a deck that is focused on trap cards. It does play monsters, but arguably it doesn't rely on them as heavily as decks like, for example, Kashtira or Super Heavy Samurai. That's all I can. That's the only reason I can really think of. Oh, maybe it's for Pearlies? I don't know. Pearlies are a new archetype, which does a lot of stuff through quick play spells. I don't know, maybe it's some backwards runic hit, who knows. It's a very weird hit that I don't really understand. I'm sure a more experienced player would be able to explain, oh, it's for this deck, and it would make sense. Maybe. Dang long. Sure. Okay, the first actual Kashtira hit that we're seeing is a Rise Heart. which, I'll be real with you, chat room, this isn't really a hit. So, yes, a Rice Heart is, like, the big payoff for Hachitiro. And to put it simply, because we're not going to go and read a Rice Heart, because we don't need to go and read a Rice Heart, trust me, when it gets to Master Duel, we'll be seeing enough of it. A Rice Heart effectively reads, you either have the out for this, or you lose. Which can be said of a lot of cards, that is fair. None of them have really said it as hard as a Rice Heart is saying it right now. Unfortunately, the only real outs to a Rice Heart are Kaijus and similar tribute to remove kind of things. Having won a Rice Heart means that it's now a lot harder for Hachitiro to build back from a game state where they had a Rice Heart and it got Kaiju'd out. The issue here is that if you do Kaiju out a Rice Heart, the game is basically over. You've pretty much just won from that position. And this is the problem with like these super powerful cards that do a whole lot of stuff, but it's all hinging on this one axis, right? It's that, yes, Hachitiro Rice Heart, basically, if your opponent can't out it, will basically hand you the game on the silver platter. However, if your opponent can out it, and they do, yeah, it's basically over, but in the opposite direction. This is big. Delicious Memory is one of the important cards for Pearly. The fact that it's, again, we've had maybe 2 weeks of being able to play with Pearly, and it's already being hit. That's kind of a problem. Interior Sacred Tree. People are playing Interior. And then Semi-Limit, a part of the ban list, which I think is ultimately fruitless. This is such a pointless part of the fucking ban list. Like, I'll level with you, chat. I don't even really like the limited list. I understand why it's here. It's here so that cards that are oppressive, but ultimately not like so powerful they break the game, can still be in the game without being too much of a problem. You know, what's a good example here? Like, something like Morphing Jar, right? Morphing Jar's a powerful card. It lets you empty both players' hands, lets you draw back up to 5. If you didn't have anything in hand, it basically reads draw 5. It's pretty fucking sick. In the right decks, I mean, it's a flip monster, so very slow by today's standards, not particularly good. However, in the right circumstances, this can be a very powerful card. There are some gimmick decks out there who their entire point is flipping cards. Like, the entire thing is built around flipping monsters multiple times in a turn. Morphing Jar on its own isn't a broken card, and even in that kind of deck, it's not particularly egregious, because the amount of effort you have to put into making that deck and strategy work is just, oh boy. Like, it's very easily disrupted by cards like Ash Blossom, cards like Gamma, and, you know, in a duel where you can't pull off those tricks, like, any other deck will just steamroll you. Like, it's over. You're done. Morphing Jar absolutely should not be at 3. However, it's also not like so powerful that it should just be banned outright. So having it exist in this kind of period, in this kind of place here, is fine. I don't particularly like it, but it's not the end of the world. Strike Dragon's another good example. It searches out boot sector launch, which is an important part of the Dragon Link combos. If you had multiple copies of Striker Dragon, it could be a problem because it would be very easy. It'd be very easy for Dragon Link decks to run, two of those, two boot sector launch. And then it's just like, oh, well, they stopped the first one. Good thing I can just go into the second Striker Dragon and combo off the next turn. Like, yeah, it's... But at the same time, having a single Striker Dragon which can search the single copy of boot sector, well, the second copy if it gets negated and destroyed, if you can loop it back into the extra deck to bring it back, which takes more resources and more planning, so on and so on, it's fine. This, however, now you might think, oh, well, a semi-limit list makes sense along the same lines, except not really, because a lot of the time it's just, oh, I don't have the third copy of, Alpha card like Plotted Desires, or Lightning Storm. Okay. This just feels kind of redundant, right? Like, if I'm losing to... Okay, look, you're seeing all this, like, was limited and new on here. I'm looking at cards on here, and they are having effects. We'll get into it, chat. We'll get into it. But look, if I'm losing to 2 copies of Mali, I'm losing to 3 copies, right? If I'm losing to 2 copies of Pot, I'm losing to 3. It does not matter. The only card on here that I think even makes remotely any remote level of sense on here is exactly Destiny Hero Malicious. Because Malicious kind of does care about having the third copy of it. Like, it's weird. Destiny Hero Malicious. Basically... Destiny Hero Malicious requires you to have a copy of Destiny Hero Malicious in the graveyard to summon. Or to special it, rather, right? Which sounds weird when you consider Destiny Hero Malicious on its own. When you consider it at 3 copies, suddenly you realize, oh, no, Mali just kind of gets exponentially more powerful the more copies of it you have. So yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of the semi-limit list, but fine, whatever, it's here, and it has been populated by 6 new cards. Herald of Orange Light brings back horrible memories of having to deal with Drytron, but realistically, for the current meta, I think it's probably fine. I don't think anyone's running Drytron at this point in time in a serious capacity, so... Kashtira Unicorn. This is such a nothing hit to Kashtira. Even I can tell you, this means functionally nothing. So between Terraforming, 3 copies of the field spell, 3 copies of Fenrir, that is 7 vectors to get to Unicorn. Plus the 2 Unicorn. That is 9 different cards that can get you to Kashtira Unicorn, or are already Kashtira Unicorn. Which is an important extender for the archetype. not having copy number 10 of Unicorn means fucking nothing. Wow, literally just under a quarter of my deck can get to Unicorn now, as opposed to exactly 1/4. That's assuming that Castura pilots can't just find another searcher that grabs Unicorn, which maybe they can't. Maybe that's a fair point. But this means so little. I just want to... On the same ban list as Branded Expulsion. The same ban list that Expulsion got banned. They looked at a Rise Heart, and they looked at Unicorn and went, yeah, 1 and 2 of you respectively. Wild. Crazy. They limited Delicious Memory. But Unicorn, put him to 2. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Alright, I've got more to say, but we'll shelve it for a second. Lightning Storm semied. This is a... I don't understand the point of this hit. What is this accomplishing? Lightning Storm is what I'd call a Timmy card, okay? It's very powerful until you start playing the game, like, seriously. Lightning Storm, what Lightning Storm does is it as long as you don't have any face-up cards on your side of the field, it will destroy either all of your opponent's attack position monsters or all of their spell traps. Bear in mind that Harpy's Feather Duster, which destroys all of your opponent's spell traps regardless of anything else on your board, and Regeki, which will destroy all of your opponent's monsters, regardless of anything else on your board, are both legal. Now, yeah, Lightning Storm is technically more flexible. However, it does also require you to have nothing face up on your side of the field. I don't think even Labyrinth players are playing this, right? Like, the trap-based archetype? Lightning Storm reads very good on paper, and for a while it was very good, but this was a few years ago. I don't think anybody really cares that much about it. And the people that do care about it are losing just as hard to 2 copies of it as they were to 3. Potter Decides has been made for a while, and I mean, sure. Runic Fountain. Maybe this would mean something if it was at 1. But all this really means is Runic pilots are, I don't know, playing a copy of Metaverse now? As terraforming at home? Engage to 2. Engage to 2 makes me upset. There's a small subsection of the community who still insists on playing Sky Striker. They recently got... can't remember what it's called. Sky Striker Relink or Linkross or... Oh no, it's Linkage, isn't it? Yeah, that fills me with confidence. The fact that the top result for it was Linkage OTK. Reading Crad. Make it big. Well, that's as big as I can get it. You control no monsters in your main, which is the Sky Striker thing. You can't special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn, except Sky Striker Ace monsters. Makes sense. Also, send one other card you control to the graveyard. It does not have to be a monster, it can just be like a face-down spell, which they probably want in the grave anyway. And if you do special summon one Sky Striker Ace monster from your extra deck to the extra monster zone, they can cheat out one of their link monsters, which can be Zeke. You have at least one light and one dark Sky Striker Ace monsters on your field and or in your graveyard. Summon the monster gains 1000 attack. Okay, so this means they can... It means they can dump a spell card into the grave. They can cheat out one of their link monsters, which could be Hayate to attack directly and bin another spell. It could be Kagari to loot back another spell from their grave, including linkage, by the way. If you've got both of the main deck monsters, either on the field or in your grave, the monster that you bring out also gains 1000, which could actually be important in the case of Hayate, because it means that she's attacking directly for 25 rather than 15. It could make some very big Kagaris, although that's not really the striker game plan. I think it pushes Zeke up to 25, 35 if he gets his effect off, I think? Okay, but the point is, they recently got this, which isn't a half-bad card. It does a lot of things that they want to do. It's a pretty good starter for them. It's a pretty good extender for them. It's a pretty good everything for them, to be honest. So seeing Engage, which is functionally Pot of Greed, but better for Striker, coming back to 2, in the same format where... Let me just take a quick little gander at the banned list. Oh, well, look at that. There's no Sky Striker cards on here. What a surprise. Not even any on the fucking limited list. They have Kagari at 3. So what Striker can do is they can play Sky Striker Engage, which lets them search a Sky Striker card and then draw a card if they have 3 or more spells in their grave, which they usually will. They can then make Kagari get Engage back from the graveyard, play it again, search one, draw one, make another Kagari, grab Engage again. Are you seeing where I'm going with this, chat? Effectively, if they don't recycle any of the Kagaris, and assuming they are always grabbing either Hornet Drones or Ray or Rose, which are the 3 monsters you can link off to make Hayate. Not Hayate, Kagari. Or any of the links, actually. Yeah, they can effectively go plus... Or they can go +1 for the... +1 for the first Engage, then +1 for each Kagari. At least +4 if they draw both of the Engages, or decide to search another one. Well, no, they'd have to draw another of the Engages. But they can effectively get to like +5, +6, if my maths is right on that. I'm not sure what the maths is on the last Engage. But the point is, they can draw a shit ton of cards. They can... I'm not a big fan of Striker. See, this is why we need Colossus back. Colossus stops this kind of shit. And then Sprite Starter, again, Sprite was last month's kind of big shit. Sprite is probably the 3rd best deck right now. Like, it could do stuff if it was given the room. The problem is, The rest of this list, in terms of the meta, does not really matter because of this and this being the only real Kashtira hits. Realistically, we needed to see something like Unicorn to 1 or Fenrir to 1, as well as what we've got here, plus probably something in the banned list. I mean, what they do to Tillman, right? I mean, they straight up banned fucking Kit Kalos. They banned Kit Kalos, they limited everything else. I think they put all of the... Yeah, all the actual Tillman's names are at 1. Master Duel has proven having them at 2 is just too much. Because everyone is playing them. I mean, they're kind of fun to play, I'll be honest. Like, I don't hate the tier element matchup. But, yeah, they banned Kit Kalos, and it's just like, well, we can't play Tillman now. Kit Kalos is so important to the strategy, just... Kit Kalos to 1 would have been... It would have meant we could still play tier, right? But it wouldn't... It wasn't going to top anything. Realistically, we would have needed to see something vaguely similar. Like, the banning of Arise Heart would have made sense. Putting Fenrir to 1 would have made sense. But it's just not happened. So we're probably going to see Kashtira still topping. Ultimately, the gameplay loop for Kashtira has survived the ban list. And that's what would have determined whether it's sticking around or going. They really would have needed to do something to kill the gameplay loop to push it out of contention. Even if they had, right? Let's say they did both. Let's say they put Unicorn to 1 and banned Arise Heart. People would still be trying to force cash. I guarantee it. People would still be trying to play Kashtira. They probably wouldn't be getting very far, but they would be trying to play it. Absolutely. And then we'll just check the unbans. Steam the Cloak, fine. Genex Ally Birdman could have come off 10 years ago, wouldn't have made a difference. It could have come off 5 years ago, wouldn't have made a difference, is more accurate. I'm sorry, Lotus, sure. Quick Fix, it's not Mastermind, so who cares? Versatile Starling. That means nothing. I'm glad to see it as a bird up player, but you know. Draco face off, fine, and Conti roll. Yeah, so Sky Striker player is going to be eating well this ban list. Just want to say I stand in solidarity with the Orcus players who still haven't got Harp Horror back. My fellow Thunder Dragon enjoyers who still wait on Colossus's return. Okay, but let's bring it back. What does this mean for our card game? You know, I had a point, chat. I had a point. It's been lost in the ban list source. Okay, so the actual point of talking about the ban list is to put it in the context of what we're doing with the game. We're not doing like full-scale duels, which means we're probably going to need to do our own ban list. But the other thing that we're not doing, what we don't want to see, right, is essentially what the current game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Mostly is, which is effectively 3 turns long, but it's 3 very long turns. a lot of decks, and not all decks, right? There's a misconception that this is like all that Yu-Gi-Oh is now is just Combo City, and that's not true. Um, and there are decks like Labyrinth, there are decks like Eldritch, which do not do these massive combos. I mean, even Striker, right? Even Sky Striker doesn't do like these big combos. It's a control toolbox kind of deck. What we don't want to be doing is having the bulk of a duel bogged down by people doing these long combos. This doesn't mean like... This doesn't mean like big or important plays. What this means is we don't want to be... We don't want players to make their decks with the... Like, with the idea that, oh, the only way I can play the cards that I want to make the boards that I want are to go through, like, this 30-step combo, going through all these different cards to get to, like, the same setup every time. What we don't want is to see, like, the big 30-step combos, right? What we want to do is have our players going straight to the important cards, or if not straight to the important cards, then getting to them at the right time, you know, thematically. Like, just imagine, imagine what the original Duel Monsters would have looked like if every single duel was Yugi playing 30 cards in a row on his first turn and always ending with Dark Magician. It would be so fucking lame. Eventually they just start smash cutting to Yugi being like, and finally the last piece of my combo to summon Dark Magician. Right? Like, we want to see impactful plays. What we don't want to see are these stupidly long and drawn out sequences. You know, the kind of stuff where it's like, oh, my opponent's doing this? Okay, well, I'm gonna go make myself a cup of tea, and when I come back, you know, maybe they'll be halfway done. So Konami have got to fix this shit. The next update after this will be in a few months. Well, how long's that? How long's a piece of fucking string, dude? I also want to point out that these three guys at the top here, right? These are all cards that we all agreed were a problem when they first started, like, hitting the fields. Maybe not when they were first printed, but when they first began becoming popular, we all looked at them and went, yeah, this isn't okay for the game. This is really unhealthy. All three of these cards, in very specific decks, and actually Scythe was not in specific decks at all. That card was all over the fucking place. All of these cards would lock your opponent out of effectively being able to play the game. This guy basically said, oh, you're only summoning cards of a specific type. This one, well, if I'm popped during your turn, which was very easy to do with the right decks, destroy Phoenix Enforcer being probably the biggest proponent of it, but you could also pull that off with something as simple as a Mystical Space Typhoon. Yes, really. Basically, if this is popped during your turn, you're not special summoning. At all. Have fun not playing the game. And this guy, oh, you're not specialing anything except wind monsters. And for people not familiar with the modern game, special summoning is basically how you get everything done. You're not seeing decks except for exactly two that aren't... three. there are exactly 3 decks that aren't special summoning, and one of those was meta in Master Duel, but not meta in the TCG, and the other 2, well, Monarch sees on and off stints of playability, and True Draco was very big at one point, and then it wasn't. So yeah, when special summoning is the bread and butter of like 99% of decks in the game, and then you have these guys who basically say, you can't special summon, get fucked. Yeah, these cards lead to non-games, which are win or lose. You don't want non-games. You don't want games where one person has sat there and gone, well, I just couldn't do anything. That is not how you make a good game. The other interesting thing about all of these cards is that they were only banned maybe a month or 2 after they should have been. I'm not too certain about Protoss. I think Protoss might have actually been hit at the right time. These 2, however, very much outstayed their welcome. Anyway, that has nothing to do with, like, the game design, except in, like, a philosophical sense of how do we design a good game. I just wanted to rant about the ban list a little bit. That's all. Okay, so we're not doing whole house matches. We're not doing, like, proper duels. What we want to do... I was gonna say we're focusing on, like, important cards. We're focusing on favorite cards. We want players to bring cards that they don't usually play with. That could be interesting on its own. Not included strictly combo. So every card should do something on its own, other than, and not just be like part of a combo piece, right? Like, if we're including, for example, if we're including Salman Great Almirage, right? We should be including it because there's something interesting that we can do with Almirage, other than using it as a bridge to get to another card. This does raise a question of what do we do with cards like Polymerization? What do we do with cards like Ritual cards? These are kind of questions that Konami doesn't seem to be able to answer themselves. I have an answer, which I think would actually fix these cards in the TCG. But we can wait on that. Consistent decks. Hit and on. A very consistent deck between the power cards. There's an end board. Oh, no, or actually, this is something I'm a little concerned about. Is that the nature of how we're probably going to have to make this means these two strategies could become very powerful very quickly if we're not careful about it, so we need to keep that in mind. Examples. Look at literally every from monsters, GX, 5Ds. I can't even remember what came after 5D. I should, right? It was Zexal, wasn't it? So in each of these, right, effectively, the decks were made up of engine, or what I'm just gonna call, like, chaff. Because Yugi's deck had a lot of fucking chaff in it, alright? Let's just be honest. Celtic Guardian wasn't doing anything for anybody. He was just a guy. Even cards that fucking combo together, like fucking, what was it? Fucking Berthamet and Gazelle, King of Mythical Beasts. They made the Fusion Chimera. Yeah, like, in the grand scheme of things, that wasn't doing shit, right? Again, it's another dude. Cards like Beast of Gilfer, cards like Summon Skull, they're just guys. They don't build to anything, they don't do anything interesting, they're just there. It starts to drop off in GX when you start to get actual archetypes, and you have stuff like heroes, where you've got cards that actually interact. If there's another hero on my side of the field, I can do this. I can equip my Bubble Man with his Bubble Blaster. Like, yeah, some of these cards are fucking garbage. You know, an equip spell that I can only equip to one specific monster. Ooh. Wow, this card is dead in any situation where I don't have exactly fucking Bubble Man on the field. Or there's fucking Neo Bubble Man, who you cannot summon because the card to summon him is banned, which is hilarious. You know, there's... You start to see this metamorphosis from decks being just like piles of garbage into decks that actually kind of synergize with each other, or themselves rather. But they'd all ultimately do the same thing. You'd have some engine cards, or in Yugi's case, chaff, which lead to signature cards. Dark Magician, Blue Eyes, HC. Now, there is an argument to be made that, like, oh, but my signature monster was, you know, Harpy Lady, and then that's like an engine card or a chaff card or what have you. I think it's an iconic card, but I don't think it's a fucking it's not what I would call a signature card, because she wasn't winning games with just Harpy Lady, right? That'd be something like the Pet Dragon or Harpy Lady Sisters. It's also had support cards. And this is stuff like Mirror Force, Destruction, sort of being right. And like these aren't all like trap cards, MST, yada yada. The point is, you kind of have this balance between... You've got this balance between cards that let you do your thing, cards that support you doing your thing, or... Okay, hold on. Ultimately, you can break a deck down into 3 distinct parts. You've got... guys doing their thing. AKA Engine. These are the cards that let you actually implement your strategy. Then you've got guys helping you do your thing. These are staples. Now, but staples in card game terminology actually refers to like individual cards that everybody uses. For example, in Master Duel, Max C can be considered a staple because literally every single deck uses it. There are very few instances where you do not want Max C in your deck, and those instances are usually because you're playing against one of the 3 decks I mentioned earlier that don't special summon. Everybody plays Max C. Similarly, everyone plays Ash Blossom, because Ash Blossom is one of the only ways to stop Max C when your opponent plays it. It's kind of a problem. In this instance, we're using it to mean cards that aren't directly part of your strategy, but you still want to include. So, for example, most decks won't get anything out of destroying all of their opponent's monsters in terms of actually getting you closer to finishing your own board. However, you probably still want to play something like Regeki or Mirror Force, because destroying all of your opponent's monsters can still be pretty powerful. At least in the context of this game. That's a reason both those cards are at 3 in the TCG, and nobody plays them. And finally we have the boys, which are... Well, these are like... These are the headliner cards, these are the big guys, these are the ones that you really fucking... This is what we are building, what we want to win the game with. This should probably be the other way around. And we call these Signature. Okay, so these are like the kind of things that we want to think about. How many people make their deck with. Alright, so... So what I'm thinking, right? Let's think about think about this. How do we actually... So, ideally, duels should be short and sweet. Few times. Few minutes to resolve. So let's talk about this is our equivalent of battles in other systems. Now, we're gonna cheat a little bit here and talk about this in reference to D&D, because D&D is kind of like, again, sort of like the big, not milestone, but like, the big fucking hurdle that we need to get over, right? What the fuck am I saying? No. D&D is kind of the big thing that we want to compare ourselves to when we're talking about exactly combat. Because this is the combat most people are going to be familiar with. D&D combat can take a fucking long time. It can be an absolute pain. So, we want to avoid that. Again, we're doing that thing of, we're comparing ourselves to D&D to avoid the sins of D&D. Honestly, I think that's just a good way of going about making a system. Let's just avoid all the bad shit that D&D did, and we're going to end up hitting a lot of right notes. Again, I don't think D&D got to where it is by being a good system. I think it got to where it is by being the most well-known system. It didn't get there by being a quality product, it got there by virtue of extremely good marketing. So we're going to go out of our way to do not what D&D did. Maybe I should, take the lessons of D&D in regards to my own publicity, but, let's one step at a time. Let's make this stupid game first. So, this is our equivalent of fighting in other systems. Fortunately, we don't need to, resolve initiative or anything like that. We can just operate this much like a duel in duel / duelings. So this is the part of where they would need to read the book. And we're not gonna set out the whole thing here, but I'm going to put a basic idea of what I think we can be doing with this, right? This is where we can start setting up the, what we're going to do long term. I know, we spent a lot of this stream talking about the ban list rather than actually making the game, but I wanted to do a ban list reaction. Oh dear. Okay, so let's... So ideally... short duels... 1v1... 2v2... keep everyone invested in the game. So we could be having two kinds of duels. I'm gonna call them Blitz and Proper. Blitz duel. So, a Blitz duel, this is basically when you have to deal with a guy that is not very important. This is someone who you could probably have the same outcome by just going, yeah, I'm just gonna knock this guy out, right? There's that one bit in 5Ds where Yusei just beats up like 3 fucking security guards and bursts into this dude's office. Like, he literally Shoryuken someone, it's great. This is for those kinds of guys, right? It's for the chat slash goons. Guys who would be defeated screen slash are not important. And this would be something very simple, like just comparing like the attack stats of two monsters or something. I'm not married to that, but I think that's just like probably the fastest way of doing it. I seem to remember in like the first episode of Duel Monsters, there's a part where Yugi is like Teia's being like basically abducted by a dude, and Yugi turns up and he's like, "How about we play a little game? I will. You pick one card from the bottom of my deck. I'll pick one card from the top, and then whichever has the strongest attack wins." And then they do it, and like Yugi wins the thing, and he's like, and then the guy's like, "Okay, but I'm still going to, do the unspeakable to this girl." And Yugi's like, "Mind crush," like, I don't know. Silly. But the point of this is to abstract the duel into a faster solution. Because this duel doesn't really matter so much, we can just abstract it and just pick off the top. It doesn't really matter. Well, it does matter, but it doesn't matter in so much as, it doesn't need to be broken down into, like, this big duel. For the proper duels, then? We're probably looking at... Who'd run... I don't know, 3 to 10 minutes? Not even that, like, 3 to 5 minutes, right? See, the problem here is that I've sort of designed a card game before. I've designed the rules for a card game. That was part of, like, a collaborative thing. I made like, all the rules. The background and stuff was made by sort of committee. The original concept wasn't mine. I was brought in to help design the card game side of things. I then got bitched at by a programmer who didn't understand how card games worked and kept insisting that we couldn't make things like, "Oh, you can't make a online card game simulator that has like chains and stuff." Oh no, that'd be impossible to make because you'd have to be waiting on. You'd have to be pinging both sides on every part of the chain if they wanted to interact and resolve it. What if someone's not there? That this was, I was actively playing fucking Edo Pro, right? I was actively playing Edo Pro at the time as well, so I'm just like, this exists. This technology has already been made. What do you mean we can't it can't be done. If you can't do it, you can't do it. But like saying that it can't be done is, oh dear. Anyway, the problem is I've not actually. This is kind of a hard one because I'm kind of coming from a place of like no experience here. I think we're looking at something that's even slimmer than like Duel Links, right? And Duel Links is like that's already really low to the ground because like the card pool, not the card pool, deck size is only like 20 to 30 cards. I kind of want it to be smaller than that because I don't think we need to be doing like any engine whatsoever. Let's. I'm gonna throw some numbers down. I'm absolutely not married to them, but let's. LP. We'll start with like 4,000. Actually, no, right? We'll start with like. No, I think we have to start with 4,000, right? Because cards like Blue Eyes Alternative are just far too easy to get out. Yeah, if you're starting with 3,000 life points, let's say you're in a situation where you're going first, you can't, like, somehow you brick. You do not draw anything useful. And your opponent goes, and they go, okay, well, I'm gonna fucking normal summon Lord of Dragons, Luta Summoning Dragon, here's Blue Eyes White. But, I mean, to be fair, actually, having 4,000 life points in that scenario doesn't help either, because that still represents lethal. Still lethal damage. Imagine losing to Flute of Summoning Dragon. Oh, that is... I'm sorry, that is fucking funny. Okay, I but it's a lot easier to get 3k on board than it is 4. We might even have to kick this up to 8k, now that I think about it. Okay, we'll leave it at 4. If it needs to change, it needs to change. Deck size. I'm gonna say 10 to 15 cards. In May. Yeah. Extra. Say 5 in the extra. Say 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 32, 32, 23. Let's say 3. We'll go for an upper for this one. We might even reduce that down to 1. But this is a special thing that we're going to talk about in a second. Do we follow the Duel Links rules, or do we follow... Say, ban this as... TCP, ban list... Destruction. Destruction. Walking jar. Reasoning. Actually, no, I think reasoning's probably fine. I'm sure I won't regret that choice. Okay, so we will need to have our own, like, ban list, although I think it's a ban list that we can just kind of grow off of, the TCG ban list. And just be like, hey, whatever's currently banned in the TCG, yeah, ban that here as well. But also... yeah, certain cards cannot be legal in this format because we have a deck size of 10 to 15 cards. As you can see, we're following standard rules, which means we're opening with a hand of 5 cards. So let's do some quick maths here. At Morphine Jar, when it's flipped face up, both players discard their hands and draw 5 cards. Remember that, per the rules of Yu-Gi-Oh!, if you cannot draw a card, or you cannot draw enough cards, you lose on the spot. So let's say you're going second. Let's say you've got a 10-card deck. Your opponent draws 5 cards. They play 1 card face down, and end their turn. You draw. You have 6 cards in hand. That means you have 4 cards left in your deck. Now this is optimal. And the reason this is optimal is that the fewer cards you have in your deck, the more likely you are to draw a card that you need. Right? If I have... let's say I've got 1 copy of Regeki, which will clear out my opponent's board and allow me to attack the game. Would you rather have a 1 in 10 chance of drawing the Regeki, or a 1 in 15? But you'd rather the 1 in 10. So, you draw your 6th card, but you draw for turn. You've got 4 cards left in deck. You summon a monster. You attack their face down. They flip it. It's Morphing Jar. You discard your hand of 5 cards. Your opponent discards their hand of 4 cards. They draw 5 cards. You draw 4. You cannot draw the 5th because you are now out of cards in your deck. You lose on the spot. Yeah, that may be a problem. So, Morphing Jar cannot be lethal in this game. Card destruction cannot be lethal in this game. Even hand destruction's kind of a problem, right? Discard 2 and draw 2? Holy shit, that's powerful. I'm fully expecting these rules to change, if I'm honest. But this is what we'll run with for now. I am going to have to go behind the scenes and, like, lab some stuff out. What we want to ask is, what does an duel look like in this game? No players play this and does that there is, which should be to get one of their signature monsters on the field to close out the game while using staples to disrupt their opponent. Game should be 3 and 5 times. NPCs. Okay, so NPCs I think should be able to play like mill and burn because yeah, they're like they're well known. They're kind of important to the games. Um, that said, they should be kept in check, right? Like, no one likes losing to mill. No one really likes losing to burn. It'd be kind of lame if it was like, oh well, we just keep losing to fucking mill. I can see an interesting campaign where one asshole just keeps using mill and everyone has to come together to try and like make a strategy to beat him. That could be interesting. Similarly, PCs can use like burn and stuff to further their strategies, but it should still be like you should still the goal of your deck should still be to bring out a monster or a collection of monsters to 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 close out the game. So let's talk about what the signature cards are. So signature cards are these are the cards that will. So some Yu-Gi-Oh games have like a destiny draw mechanic, right? Where when things are looking bad and you really need, you need that one card, that top deck that will win you the game. This is where like destiny draw comes in. And it's like it's based off the thing where Yugi can, as spoilers for Duel Monsters, Yugi can basically always draw the card that he needs at any given time. He has the power of top decking. He has the anime protagonist powers of fucking top decking. So effectively that's what signature cards are. Right, and it's probably going to be like the player's big boss monsters, like important staples and stuff. Yeah, these cards that you rely on to win the game. And the idea is that the player will always have access to them. So instead of drawing normally, they can they can draw their signature card. I'm not sure if it's going to. I'm not sure if these cards will like exist in the deck. I think that probably makes a. There's two options here. We can have them existing inside the deck, or we can have them as their own separate thing, right? If they're their own separate thing that can just be accessed whenever, then that gives them certain protection. But it's just like, well, they're never going to be risk of being like milled or anything. But similarly, like you can't, like if you need them, you have to use your signature draw to get them. I mean, it's kind of a little bit pointless if like your signature card is something like an extra deck monster where you can just make it anyway, right? I think for main deck monsters, it makes... well... actually, it doesn't really change anything for extra deck monsters if they're in the extra deck or not. I mean, I guess it gives you more slots to play with. It makes the extra deck more versatile. But that might not be a good thing. Because if every extra deck has one more slot in it, there's nothing to stop literally everyone from playing a copy of, I don't know, Nightmare Phoenix or Cerberus or Unicorn. God, I don't want everyone playing a copy of Unicorn. Oh, that would be rough. Yeah, I think that's a discussion that we'll leave for a minute. I think we probably do put these cards in the decks. And when they need the signature Destiny draw, like, you just search through your you just search through your deck and draw the card. I'm also considering a... let's talk about alt summoning mechanics. So this is, like, the big thing for... especially for ritual monsters and fusion monsters with, like, specific materials. But rituals, fusion, synchro, seize. He summoned, attributing. I spelled tributing wrong. No. It's per level. Regardless of monster type. For example, you could tribute summon synchro off the top of my head, I don't know. Let's say level 8. Cases, ranks, did as levels, rank 7, monster is treated as level 7 or predetermine how many tributes get. For example, these summons are treated as tribute summons. I'm debating whether we make these count as special summons. Because there's a lot of monsters in this list that are already, like... There are monsters that are in this list that are already like, oh, well, you've not specialed us by synchroing or by Z-summoning. So we kind of don't care. Like, we're not going to get our effects anyway, right? Like, if you don't synchro summon Borderload Savage, for example, it doesn't get its, it doesn't get any of its abilities, it's just a big guy. Actually, we'll make them count as tribute summons, which means they need a normal summon. And also... the monster is also treated as if it was summoned by... not by its own effect. It was summoned a ritual. Monster is also treated as if it was ritual fusion synchro was Z summoned. Expectedly. Okay, so you can just like tribute these monsters out. If you somehow manage to set this up in a way that like doesn't use your normal and stuff, then yeah, you can use your normal to bring out one of these monsters and be like, okay, yeah, and it gets this effect as well. These monsters may attach attributed monsters as materials, so these monsters get unfucked by this. Link monsters and fade log. I think link monsters, we probably just leave them alone. I think link monsters can reach their own levels of degeneracy easily enough. Plus, can you imagine what fucking access... Can you imagine if you could just tribute summon access code? The thought brings shivers to my spine. So no, we'll leave link monsters alone. I think these three are fine. I think this does a lot for ritual and fusion monsters specifically, because it means you don't need shit like polymerization. You don't need to be running the ritual spells. You don't need to draw that shit. Like, Fang Critius? Forget about it. Get that shit out of here. No, you can just fucking tribute summon. It's fine. This does raise a question of what do we do with level 4? Level / rank 4 or lower monsters must be special summoned. Level rank 4 or lower monsters cannot be summoned this way. I have now just remembered the existence of Naturia Beast, Naturia Barkion, and Naturia Exterio. They should probably just errata those 3 cards to being hard once per turns. Well, okay, hold on. I think Exterio may not be the biggest problem, actually. So, okay, Exterio is the worst of them. It has 2800 attack, it negates spells and traps. In a universe where that is the only monster they have... Oh. I just thought of another card we need to ban. I'm not sure if it's currently banned, and I'm not taking the fucking chance. This guy is very fun. This guy reads, if he's on the field, neither player can summon monsters. So if you get Exterio out, and you find a way to get him out, yeah, your opponent can't play spell traps, and they can't summon monsters. They literally cannot play the game. And it's horrifying that that's not the only combo I know of that achieves exactly that. Should I just buy... Should I just ban Drytron? The fucking Drytron Ritual? Should I just... Actually, should I just ban Herald of... Yeah, I'm gonna ban Herald of Ultimateness. We're not dealing with that shit. Okay, I don't want to go crazy, like, banning monsters. We'll do a whole stream on what monsters we're gonna fucking well ban. We've been going for 2.5 hours? Yeah, I think we're good. Alright, like this, I think this solves certain problems. It probably also makes certain problems, but yeah, that's a future Kallen problem, and I know that guy, he's an asshole. We'll deal with that later. For now... Oh, I kind of wanted to do this thing where field spells... Instead, apply bonuses based on where the duel is taking place. Rules. It doesn't have to be just like the PM ones, but also reflect more modern fields. Both players can use the effects of the field spell as if it were in play on their side of the field. I'd love to see the chicken game, right? Show me the chicken game. I will use chicken game to destroy itself. Oh, I want to see someone play with the chicken. I want to see this fucking format of the chicken game field spell. It'd be so fucking funny. Chicken game, for those who don't know, is a very fun card that I believe is still banned, but it's legal in Master Duel. Chicken game lets you do 3 things. At a cost of 1,000 life points, you can either draw a card, destroy chicken game, or make your opponent gain 1,000 life points. Well, why would you do either of the last 2, you ask? Because chicken game has another effect. Whoever has the lowest life points does not take damage. Chicken Game is one of my all-time favourite spells because it's so fucking stupid. It has no right to exist, and yet it does. Banned because it enables FTKs. Based because it's a really funny card. The final part of Chicken Game is that either player can use its effects. It's so fucking stupid. It is so good. I'm so glad it exists. Anyway. I think this is where we're going to wrap it for today. I am aware this stream's probably not, it's not done particularly well in terms of viewership. I kind of expected that might be the case. It is currently day 3 of a Comic-Con in the UK, which is where most of my viewers are from. And we wouldn't get any of the usual kind of growth in the US because there are currently, well, from abroad at least, because there are currently 2 YCSs on and a new fucking ban list as of yesterday. So all eyes are going to be turned towards that. But, you know, I wanted to be consistent. I wanted to run this stream in case anybody was around. I salute the people who do turn up. I'm just hoping the VOD will have a bit more luck, right? But for now, let's save this. Game stuff. Card games on tabletops. Okay, that sounds dirty. Oh. Card combatants. Slim. And then I'm gonna switch this over to here. But let's see. Who's on? Who's on? Who's around? Right, that's just shit we don't care about? Sure. Alright, we'll go do a raid. We'll do a small raid. Let me do. But I don't actually know. Maybe there's a raid button in OBS, but I've never found it. I have never found it. It's unfortunately never appeared to me. Alright, fuck it. I'm losing my mind, chat room. It's time to raid. Yeah, let's raid a channel that's already got like 5,000 viewers. That seems fine. Alright. Let's make it happen, Captain. I'll sort this shit out in the end screen, but I would just like to say thank you for stopping by. This stream has gone on several tangents. I'm very aware. I feel like that's kind of part of the appeal, though. I certainly hope it's part of the appeal. Shoutouts to those of you in the VODs. I see you. I salute you. And as always, thank you all so much for stopping by. I'll be back tomorrow with Honkai Star Rail. Very excited to get back to Star Rail. After that, it will be Thursday, and we'll be continuing Fallout New Vegas. Until then, until those, that's going to be 5 PM and 8 PM respectively on those two. Until then, thank you all so much for stopping by. It means the whole world to me that I get to sit here and talk into a fucking computer and like actually have people paying some level of attention. Like I don't get any money for this. I don't get any sort of like kickback or anything. I do just do it because I enjoy it. And because I enjoy seeing you guys. So thanks for making it not a totally pointless endeavor. And I will see you all in the next one. Until then, have yourselves a great day, take care, stay safe. And I'll catch you all in the next one.
The greatest storyteller always had the perfect story whenever you needed to hear it. There were adventures that could stir the weariest soul, or even move you to tears. But surely a storyteller so great must be just another story, right?
Blue eyes? Are you sure? What, instead of harpies? Alright, I'll switch it up to blue eyes.